Hello friends, Tanya here for Spellbinders, and this time I am using the Mirrored Arch collection. This is a beautiful collection of BetterPress plates, including this Mirrored Arch blooms and dies that coordinate all together. We're going to take this beautiful floral frame and we're going to press this into some watercolor cardstock that I cut down to 5 by 7. I have my plate all lined up on the platen, and I'm using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink here to ink up the plate. This will wash off without leaving any residue, but the most important part is that it is safe for watercoloring, and it's a big ink pad, so it's easy to ink up that large plate. So I've run that through my die cut machine, and we have this absolutely crisp, delightful floral frame. Now I have my Daniel Smith watercolors here just because I love my Daniel Smith watercolors, and I have several palettes of them and I want to use them. So I have my largest palette out, and I'm using various greens, and I'm using different greens to paint the different kinds of foliage here. Now I think that top right flower is a camellia, or gardenia, one of those two. And I am following actually some representations of colored images as examples of what should be what color, sort of. And I want to have a beautiful rainbow of colors on this painting. Now these two flowers look like they are on the same branch, so I'm going to paint them similarly. I'm taking some yellow, golden yellow paint, and I do it darkest at the base of the flower, and then use some water, some clean water, to dilute it out to the tips. That gives me a nice blend. And the secret to absolutely stunning watercoloring is layering. You're going to want to layer on different colors or even the same color over and over again to build up your details. I do move around this painting so that I'm not painting things that are adjacent to each other while one part is still wet, because you can get your colors bleeding together if you do that. I'm adding some oranges on these buds and some more red. Like these look like, what is it called? Mandevilla. They kind of look like a slightly less frilly hibiscus, and their buds kind of unspiral open. I've had a couple of these in the past. Usually they're red or pink. I don't know if I've seen other colors. It's getting to be so spring-like in mid-April here in Minnesota that it's very tempting for us to start planting things well before a normal time for Minnesota. We just, it's so tempting to put things in the ground or buy hanging plants. The grass isn't turning green yet. However, there's no snow. It's been like in the 50s. Some days it's been in the 60s, almost 70 degrees. And that is very warm for here at this time of year. I'm used to having a foot or two of snow on the ground right now. So bizarre. But lots of people out doing yard work. I haven't really done that yet because life has been too busy, which is why this video is coming out in April instead of March. I think I have 5 more videos that I actually intended to get out in March, but ended up having to delay because I didn't have time to do the voiceover in order to get them published. They've just been sitting in waiting for me to finish my editing and my voiceover. So here we are, mid-April, doing the voiceover, and I will space these out a little bit over the month. There is my completed painting. I did stop partway through in the filming or edit part of it out because my camera was unfocused and it was fuzzy. I hate that. And I know it's hard to see what I'm doing, so I just edited it right out. Now I'm creating a painted background to match the colors of the flowers that I painted here. And you can create color coordinated backgrounds for your watercolored stuff by just using the same watercolors that you use to paint your main image. So I just did a gradient across the cardstock. This is again a 5x7 piece of cardstock because shockingly, I'm going to make a 5x7 card. I'm doing a couple layers of each color to make sure they're nice and vibrant because as they dry, they do tone down a bit. So now I did go ahead and dry that with my heat tool, and I'm going to pull out this Floral Archway 3D embossing folder. This was from January of 2023 for the 3D embossing folder of the month, and it is still available. I'll have that linked in the description box below, and you can see how gorgeous this watercolor paper takes the embossing. I'm going to use this Golden Hour solar paste, or is this lunar paste? No, this is solar paste. So it's got an iridescent quality, like an interference color. I'm going to use the embossing folder as my little palette. I'll dab little bits of this paste there so I can get a very thin layer on my finger and use that to highlight the areas of the embossing that are raised. And I really think that bumps up the design element here. I love to do this. If you've watched my videos for very long, you know that I love to gild the embossing. It really makes it stand out, and I think it's a great way to add extra detail to your project. This does not take very long. I'm just taking very small quantities of this paste and smearing it over the top. I'm just running my finger lightly over the design. And there's the finished product. I think that is stunning. I love that group of colors too together. I really was pretty random about that. Glad it worked out. Now I decided to take this a step further and see if I could make my own brushed white cardstock with this Golden Hour solar paste. So I have a mini ink blender here with a domed applicator, and I've used it for pastes in the past and just washed it out. And I'm applying this to some regular 80-pound white cardstock, and it does look very nice and shiny. I think it does look comparable to a brushed white cardstock. Next, I'm pulling out the Mirrored Arch Nested Sprigs. This is another of the BetterPress plates that are available in this collection, and it has several beautiful shaped frames. You can use these all in combination. They nest together with a more of a wildflower sprig type of outer frame if you wanted to use that. I foiled over this solar paste, and of course it foils just beautifully. I'm using some satin gold foil here, and this comes in a 4-pack. There's satin rose gold, satin platinum, and satin champagne foil. Just gorgeous. So I did the sentiment, and now we're going to take the Mirrored Arch labels, and I'm finding dies that will cut around these nicely. These were created to work together, so it should be very easy to find a coordinating die. I'll tape these down and run this through the die cut machine. I'm using the Best Ever Craft tape and the little pieces that are stuck to the mirror facing me to reuse these many times. These layer together very nicely. We're going to use that same Mirrored Arch Blooms press plate, the florals, and we're going to use some gold pigment ink because I want that subtle metallic look. And I have another piece of just plain 80-pound white white cardstock. I'm getting this very well inked, being careful not to let that foam ink pad get ink on the wrong parts of the plate. Ran that through my die cut machine, and now I am figuring out which of these press plates will fit in my space. I'm going to center that before I move the plate so that I can run this through again with one more pass and get this perfectly lined up in the center of that mirrored arch opening. And I wasn't sure if it was going to work, and it did. I was so excited. Had to show grand showing of that. I'm also going to use the Let's Celebrate sentiments. These are from Yana's latest release that came out in March. Lots of fantastic sentiments. Some of them are main sentiments and some are sub sentiments. Here you can see I'm using that center line to help me line this press plate up with the scrap of cardstock I'm going to use. Using the metallic ink again to get my sentiment pressed into that. It's like stamping with metal. I'm also going to use the Precision Layering Mini Slimline dies. If you have the A2 version of the Precision Layering dies, you will have dies that are the same height but different lengths. So you would be able to use those to do sentiment die cutting with some partial cutting or partial die cutting to get the right ends. I have the mini slimline ones. I use them all the time. You can't purchase them, but if you've got them in your stash, man, are they valuable. I did die cut that metallic foiled panel down to 4.5 by 6.5 inches, and we're going to adhere that to the inside of the card. I don't recommend better pressing directly on the card base because it's going to cause some funny warping. So we'll adhere that, and we have our sentiment that I better pressed and die cut, and we'll add that right in the middle of that. That could be a card front, honestly. That's really pretty. Just trying to make sure that's all straight and there's no glue fudges. Oh, that's right. When I better pressed this, the center of the O came through. It popped out. It like die cut. I'll fix that later. Next, we have our watercolored and embossed panel, which was also cut down to 4.5 by 6.5 inches before I did the embossing. There were, of course, extra layers of cardstock, scrap cardstock under that panel, and I'll use my Misty as a heavyweight block to help that adhere to the card base. Now the floral frame, I did not fussy cut this, but you could. There is not a coordinating die for this. I used my brother's Scan and Cut. The more I use it, the more I love it. It is a very quick and easy way to die cut or cut out things that don't have coordinating dies. If you are not on team fussy cutting. Then each of these mirrored arch panels have a extra scrap cardstock glued to the back, and we'll just line those up. I thought just the foiling and layers would make these look just pop just the best. Now to fix that spot where the O popped out and smeared, I took that same sentiment and foiled it with some satin gold foil or rose gold. I'm not sure which it was. And did the positive and the negative and die cut it with that same slimline, mini slimline precision layering die. And I liked the reverse foiling better. That completes card number 1. On to card number 2. We're going to use the mirrored arch blooms again, and we're going to do some foiling on some black cardstock. I have polished brass foil here, and I'm just going to secure the foil and the plate to the black cardstock, and then I'm going to take my hot platform, put the plates on there, put it back on my base, let that heat till the timer goes off, and run it through my die cut machine. We're also going to use the mirrored arch nested sprigs, and we're going to use these beautiful frames in addition, and we're going to foil those with the polished brass also. I thought I could fit both of these on an A2 size panel, but I don't think I could do that and have room to die cut them. And I think this one piece, this larger one, is wider or longer than the width of the cardstock. Then I'm going to take the coordinating mirrored arch labels dies and die cut. Actually, I'm going to take the largest and I'm going to make a shaped card. This is a full sheet of black cardstock folded in half, and I'm placing the far right, left edge past the fold, just barely past it. You can see the cutting blade just past the fold. And I run this through my die cut machine. And I've been using the scrapbook.com Magic Mat lately in my platinum machine. And I do have to say, it doesn't leave all of those cut marks in the back of my cardstock, which I find delightful. Now, it's a little harder to cut some of the more the really intricate dies on the first pass. So I sometimes have to resort to regular cutting plates again. But I'm finding that my top plate isn't warping, and that is amazing. I also am die cutting each of these layers with the coordinating mirrored arch dies. I've added some extra cardstock on the back, and since I'm using just some really inexpensive black cardstock, I did use the scraps from this session to add layers behind my cardstock, or behind each of these layers. I want to build just a little bit of depth between each of these layers to help them stand out as an individual layer. One more layer on the front here. And I was definitely building this card as I went. That is a gorgeous card front. Next, I'm trying to decide which of these sentiments I'm going to use. I've got handwritten sentiments and the everyday sentiments. The handwritten sentiments are from Simon Hurley's March release, the Tulip one. And this is still in the store. So what I'm going to do is take both of these and die cut them. So I've die cut the shadows from black and the detailed elements from mirror gold cardstock. And I'm using my Barely Art Precision Glue with the fine tip. Now I've started using the Spellbinders fine line bottles with this same glue, and it's fantastic. This happened to be filmed before I started using that. I think that's going to be my go-to. Anyway, I add little dabs of glue, little dots of glue all around on the back of this die or die cut, and add each to their shadow. And then I'm going to do a little dry fit on the card to see which one works best. Just making sure that all of the extra glue that squeezes out is picked up before it has a chance to dry. Even though it dries transparent, you can still tell that there's some extra glue there sometimes. Hugs. Maybe if I'd had one more hugs die, I could have 3 different sizes. But we're also going to use one of these sentiments from the Always and Forever sentiment strips that I have foiled. This is Sending You Strength and You're in My Thoughts. One's a reverse foil and one's the regular foil. Those are press plates, but I really liked the foiling effect. I took the reverse foiled one and put that on the front of the card and decided that I liked the larger Hugs die cut. I have a little extra cardstock behind our sentiment strip, and I had those sentiments all pre-done and in my quick and easy storage. I'll try to link that here too. Next, we're going to do some better pressing for the inside of the card like we did for the previous card. So I'm doing the same process using my pigment ink, gold metallic pigment ink on some white cardstock with the 2 different BetterPress systems or plates here from the Mirrored Arch collection. There's my word. Lining up that center one, re-inking it. You know what? I probably could have put them on the platen at the same time. I just didn't think of it. I'll have to try that once. I think they would fit. And then we're going to use the Mirrored Arch labels to die cut the same size as the outer layer. Just going to line that up to get the best effect here. I'm trying to center the center opening in this die. And then I also, let's glue that to the inside of the card. No extra layers behind this, just straight to the card base. This is so that you have a place to write. And then I also die cut. Oh no, I keep trying to jump ahead. There is our second sentiment or sub-sentiment, the sending you strength. And now I also die cut the same size white mat to put on the inside of the left side of the card, so you actually have somewhere to write, because I've pretty much covered the other side. Sometimes you don't have a lot to say other than the main message, just want to send someone a pretty card. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed watercoloring these especially. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Check that description box below for all of the products that I use. They'll be listed and linked as always. Leave me a comment. I would love to hear what you have to say. And until next time, here are a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.